Welcome to the Freedom Real Estate Podcast with your boy, Andrew Freed, and my good friend, Artem. It is our pleasure to introduce Jonathan Greene. He is a real estate investor, been in the game for about 30 years at this point, luxury agent, done everything and anything you can imagine in real estate. But not only that, he has really been a mentor to me when I first got it started. So when I first got it started, I was a bigger pockets person, and I was all over the forums. And every single time I asked a question, this guy, Jonathan Greene, ended up coming up with an amazing response every single time. So I ended up reaching out to him, asking him for some advice, which I think I was on my second or third house hack. He told me, house hack as many properties as you can, cluster all of them, and that's going to be the best for your overall portfolio. 3 to 4 years later, that's exactly what I did. Rather than a couple house hacks, I have 400 units. But nonetheless, it was amazing advice, and it is my honor to welcome Jonathan Greene. Glad to have you here today.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And I remember those bigger pockets messages. I still have them saved in there. So it's really been great to watch your journey. And I've been watching, and it's been exciting. So good to be on with you, and you too, Artem. I'm excited to have a chat.
We are very excited to have you. So, Jonathan, right now we see, Jonathan Greene, you have 30 years of experience. You've been in the game for a while, but bring us back to when you first started in real estate. What got you into real estate? Why did you get into real estate? And what kind of asset class did you start with?
Yeah, so I mean, 30 years is just my adult version because I'm 54 now, but I actually was walking properties with my dad from 2 years old on. So I've literally been in the game for 50 years. And people are like, oh, no, you weren't. No, I really was, because I owned a lot of properties before I was 18 in trust. And I knew all of my dad's tenants, and I was collecting rent at 14 and 15. So my dad was a single family investor, and he had a lot of single family. He also had a bunch of commercial properties, and we were just kind of traditional landlords, but his main job was attorney, as was my first career. So, the interesting thing now, thinking back to that, I was born in 71. Then there was no internet, and there was no, side hustle. Everything was a side hustle. We didn't think of anybody as a real estate investor or not, unless that's all they did. Everybody that my dad knew, we all were investing in real estate. So I kind of grew up thinking you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you work the job, and then you do stuff on the side so you can make more money. And I literally watched it. I went to properties. We would go to yard sales every weekend when I was up at my dad's in Westchester. And at yard sales, I realized later he was making an offer on every home. So we were really, I was kind of inducted into single family rental properties by starting there, but we own commercial as well. So I knew commercial tenants as well. And the one thing I'll say about the experience, of course, it's phenomenal that I had that start as opposed to so many people who don't. But the thing that I learned before most people didn't is about the landlord-tenant relationship, and how tenants are caretakers of your property, and the better relationships that you have with the tenants, the better they'll take care of your property. And I saw it every day. So as I got older, it was kind of ingrained in me. Even when I wanted to get away, I couldn't, because all we were doing was sports, real estate, and my dad was just telling dirty jokes, because that's what we did in the car.
Love it. No, I mean, you are absolutely right. When it comes to tenant management and keeping tenants long-term, it's all about respect, but it is also all about responding to their issues in a timely manner, right? Like, as you know, when work orders come in, and if it sits there for 30 days, I guarantee your vacancy in your portfolio is going to be through the roof, versus if you get to those problems in 3 to 5 days, right? So,
yeah, and your asset will get ruined. So, I mean, the thing that I realized quickly is that my dad built relationships with people. That's why he was good at real estate. It's why I'm good at real estate. And I'm an introvert. I don't even enjoy people. I just know how to build relationships because I actually care, because I don't try to build relationships with a million people. So, I knew that the caretaker of the asset would take better care of the asset if the exterior looked nice. If they're coming home and the outside looks like crap, they're not going to take care of the inside. And to your point, if you're not setting up a set of expectations when they move in and they know that you're available, that water drip is just going to keep going. And we've all seen it, hey, why didn't you call me? Now it's all moldy and there's black mold and you're breathing in the black mold. You've never even called me. They're like, well, you didn't respond to my first several requests. So, I don't know what to do. I'm just a tenant and I don't have the money to fix a water problem. So yeah, I mean, we're in complete agreement, but I think, landlord tenant relationships get a bad name because of course, if you watch the news, everyone thinks, regular landlords are all slumlords and that tenants are all out to get them. And there's certainly a little bit of both, but generally most landlords, they're not, these huge conglomerates. They're just people like us who really like to provide homes for people and are, sometimes softies. My dad didn't collect rent sometimes for like 6 months at a time. I have a long story about that, but, I learned why later because he actually cared about the people and he just figured it out later.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a common theme here. I think all of us are in blue states. A lot of the rentals we have, it's, tenant-friendly states, right? And people imagine that, that sort of environment's hard to own real estate, hard to make money in, right? But ultimately, you and I both know when you manage a relationship, when you treat your tenants with respect, right? The process, the success in those markets is so much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of my properties growing up were all in New York, traditionally one of the allegedly hardest states for landlords, never had a problem. The biggest problems we had were with foreclosures back in the old days before the internet, where we would buy the foreclosures and the people just wouldn't leave. And eventually you would just get them out. But we let people stay like 2 years after a foreclosure with paying no rent just because we were nice. I mean, my dad was nice at the time. I was like, kick them out. I didn't understand. I'm a teenager. Like, I just like, give me money. And I figured it all out when he said, well, one summer I was working for him as a teenager. I was still in high school. And he said, well, here's the rent collections. We're 6 months behind on these. If you get the rent collected, you can keep half of it. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going to like get as many video games as I can. And I figured out how to do weekly payment plans because I was sick. I was at least 16 because I was driving. So I just said, look, and I'll swing by every week this summer and just pick up a partial payment. And it started to work because I realized that those renters, they weren't frivolous with their money. Other stuff just came up if they kept it until the end of the month. So if I swung by weekly to take the payment, and just PS, I do think this is going to be an opportunity for landlords to make it easier for some tenants in the future, especially because you can just do it online. They just didn't spend the stuff. And in the end, they appreciated it more because sometimes they would, be out at night on a heater and they, buy a couple extra things. But in the end, it's just like, no renter, unless they're a professional tenant, which we all know what that is. They have the design on doing this to you. They don't want to be behind on the rent, just like no one wants to be in foreclosure. But, you get that way because of some bad decisions and sometimes just bad, partnerships between landlord tenant, or, what you're doing with your own money. But this was one way I figured it out.
Yeah.
Clever, actually. So I have a question. How
Yeah.
of this landlord-tenant relationship and just real estate in general, you learned from your dad versus how much you learned on your own later versus how much you got from educational sources?
I mean, I think I probably learned, obviously up until I started doing it on my own, it was really like 100% my dad. And I mean, because I did everything with him. So I wasn't like, when I was at my mom's, I wasn't doing real estate, but I was still thinking about it, and then I think even as I got older, and I started doing, I did my first kind of live and flip in my very early 20s, but I had already owned, 15, 20 properties in partnerships, and I knew what was going on. So I think I would say that my development is all built on the foundation that my dad laid for me. And I've taken it to a level, especially after he passed away, that is something like he would be proud of. And that's what makes me proud to pass it on to my kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just going back to your original point about those payment plans, I think ultimately you bring up a really good point. And these I mean, in general, to be a good landlord, it's all about creating win-win scenarios, right? And in this particular scenario, you created a win-win for them in the fact that you offered them smaller payments, but you got your rent, right? And I'm sure Artem has many examples of doing that as well. But when it comes to managing a portfolio in a tenant-friendly state, it's all about creating win-wins. It could be a cash for key situation. It could be potentially moving them to another unit, right? But these are the things you have to do to be successful in these unconventional markets.
Yeah, I mean, you have to adapt, and everything is a learning kind of mechanism. You get a different property, you buy a multifamily, the tenant base is a little different. There's more people in one unit, and you're like, oh, that's a little bit more wear and tear on the common areas. You have to fix stuff more often. I just think I've never, again, I've been walking properties for more than 50 years. Every single time I walk into a property, I see something likely that I haven't seen, or that I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So it's like, these new kids out there who are like, I'm going to crush it in real estate. And I've vetted all these deals. And I say, well, how many have you ever seen in person? They're like, 0. I don't need to see a property in person. I'm like, take your money, just burn it. You're going to lose all your money. How can you're going to start buying properties you've never been in a basement? Like, oh, they're like, well, there's no photos of those. Yeah, no shit. That's where all the problems are. Like, that's where you learn stuff. Oh, there's no photos of the entire exterior. No, of course not. Great, because that's where you're going to see all the things. Oh, it's weird. There's no photos of the backyard. Great, that's where all the stuff is buried. We're in the Northeast. There's a lot of stuff back there. So I just think like this kind of new hustle and grind real estate investor guru mentality is just creating very, very, very bad habits. You can still do exactly what I did, even though you have the internet. Not to say that technology is great. I mean, I love it. I use it for a lot of stuff. But for people who are complaining like, technology doesn't work for my investing, you can just go out and go to yard sales like I did as a kid and go knock on doors and run lists for free, on county websites, or pay a little bit on list source, build a list, call the list. I mean, when I got older, I was just really good at building smaller lists. And I've never been a what I call spray and pray marketer. I just build small lists of what my buy box is, and I'll just go after them. And I know that one postcard's not getting the job done.
What's a tenant situation or a walkthrough that really surprised you or maybe taught you the most? Is there one that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, like, commercial tenants were interesting to me. We owned a few different commercial properties growing up, and after my dad passed away, my sister and I still owned like a 5-plex that we've sold since then, and we were partners in this industrial complex for like 30 years. And I think the differentiator between commercial and residential was very interesting to me. The tenancies were less emotional. So the relationships to me, as someone who's kind of like not emotional except for my kids, were much easier to handle on the commercial side. And I'm kind of like surprised that I haven't done more commercial. Every year I'm like, just focus on commercial, quit it, stop trying to flip, like just get commercial buildings. But I also then later, when my sister and I owned the 5-plex kind of like mini mall retail strip mall, I realized that there is a trade-off. The trade-off is when things go vacant, they go vacant.
Yeah.
When you lose a gym in 2 bays of 5 units, you're going to be at it for a while because it was configured like a gym, and Verizon doesn't want to pay the build out. And when we eventually sold that to the deli, who was the cornerstone property of the mini mall, and we sold it on seller finance. So I've sold multiple deals to tenants on seller finance, and that's where I kind of learned more creative strategies because we had 2 out of 5 vacancies. So you can't sell, no one's getting a loan on that commercial property. So we only had really an option was seller finance. And like, thank goodness that the deli wanted to buy it. And then he turned it around in 18 months and sold it. And we were like, what are you doing, bro? Like, this was our money train. We were avoiding capital gains. And then he sold it. And we're like, okay, well, again, like you're saying about win-wins before, good for everyone. I never begrudge somebody doing well on a property or me doing well and then them doing well also. Like, you're just not supposed to hit home runs. You're supposed to be a 300 hitter. You're going to do awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
financing is Andrew's bread and butter. That should be your middle name.
Yeah,
it might be.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate on the uncertainty when it comes to commercial units. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that like you hit a vacancy and then now you have to consider, do I have to do a build out? Do I got to put 20, 30, 40
Exactly.
grand and actually adjust this so a tenant would actually find this desirable?
And then you adjust it because you think you know who the tenant sees, and then a massage parlor wants to come in, and you just did it like a phone center, and you're like, what am I doing? But it also doesn't show well when you haven't cleaned it up. So it's like, from someone who looks at a bunch of commercial properties, 90% of them just look like, a bunch of ostriches ran and took dumps everywhere because they're waiting to find out what they want to do on the build up, but it doesn't look good. So like commercial properties sit too, which as a buyer, it gives you a lot of opportunities. It'd be cool if rates were lower, but I just find it fascinating that real estate is a learning mechanism every day as long as you're getting reps. I just don't think you can learn as much online. I do think you can learn from people like us. You can learn from podcasts, but like you need to hit the dirt. Like you need to look at properties. You need to smell properties. You need to understand what the difference between a smokehouse and a cat pee house is. And, when a tenant says, oh, there's a problem here, and though you can smell that it's fire, then, like, hey, maybe there's a problem here, or there's something else going on. There's just so much that you can learn, and you have to if you're going to be a landlord with all these units like you have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, one of the way I kind of hedge my bets when it comes to commercial versus multifamily is I love, like, if I can find a multifamily property with like the ground level being commercial.
Yeah,
right.
That's my fave. Love it.
That's a nice hedge against it, right? So if those units are vacant, your residential units cover the overhead. And my other tip is like, if you're going to underwrite a commercial property, always be conservative.
Oh, yeah. I mean, be conservative when you're underwriting anyway, because the spreadsheet warriors, you just switch a cell. Oh, look, the whole deal works. No, it doesn't work because you switched a cell on a spreadsheet. But one thing that I want to say, because you brought up that kind of small mixed use, which is my favorite asset class, which it's all I want to buy and I never buy it. But on a mixed use property, you can actually house hack a mixed use property with an FHA loan, 3.5% down, as long as the residential portion is 51% of the square footage. So if you have 2 retail bays on the bottom and then a duplex up top, but they're smaller, they just don't fit, or it's 50-50, you can house hack that 3.5% down. And you could do it like, say there's a laundromat downstairs, if people follow Cody Sanchez. Now you have a laundromat. All laundromats always run with the building. You buy the building, you get the laundromat for free because they don't want to operate it anymore. Now you have a laundromat, a producing asset, 2 units upstairs, and you can house hack the crap out of it by doing an FHA or just low money down or owner occupant. You don't have to put down 20%.
And on top of that, you can also do a rehab or a 203K loan if it needs some work.
Yep.
Now you're house hacking and you're getting money from the bank to do the renovations.
Yeah, and you get a diversified asset inside of itself, which I think is, to me, that's what I always preach. Now there's another kind that I'll just talk about in a sec, but like just to have residential and commercial in one hedges the things that we were saying before. Okay, your retail goes out, maybe longer vacancy, but hey, PS, longer tenancy, more solid tenancy most of the time. In small towns, you also have the opportunity to let people start businesses where they're never going to be able to start a business, in another town where it's $8,000 for Main Street rent. You can have people try it out, and you can do pop-ups and stuff like that. There's ways to make money on your retail space without having a year-long tenant as well. But then when I'm talking about this, like diversified inside one asset, now one of my favorite things is for people who own multis, which I know, Andrew, you have a ton of. If you own a 3-family, you have the option to diversify your income. You go long-term rent, mid-term rent in one, and short-term rent in the other. You could do it in any place, anywhere in America, and I guarantee you it will work. And you'll triple scale your income and hedge your bets against each other. You do have more wear and tear. It maybe is not just going to be the best strategy in your town, but I've seen very few towns where at least midterm rentals will like where they won't work. And I'd be shocked if a random short-term rental wouldn't pay itself as much as your crappy long-term rent if you did it right. You just have to furnish them.
Yeah, absolutely. Furnish Finder is actually a really big thing around Boston because of all the traveling nurses.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that. I have two of my units now, and it's working out great. I'm getting $300-400 above market rent just for putting in some furniture.
And great great tenants. The thing about midterm rentals, which I like so much, is you don't need amenities. All they do, it's either going to be traveling nurses, fire or insurance displacement. Now we have a lot of contract workers coming in. If you're in a college town, you can crush it on visiting professors, 6 months, boom, that's nailed. It's just a no-brainer. There's so many ways that you can do real estate, and people sit around and they're like, oh, I don't like my long-term tenants. Well, you have more options now. Oh, I don't want to furnish it. You can furnish a midterm rental in a multifamily for like $2,500 on Facebook Marketplace with very fine stuff and very limited, one set of you just go, get your utensils and stuff at IKEA. That's all they want. They just want it to be comfortable and a little bit streamlined on the inside. They're going to work most of the time. They're going to come there. And if you go pet friendly also, and you have a yard and you have a parking space, you're just going to clean up versus what you get in long-term rent. Again, long-term rent more stable, but that's why it's cool when you have a multi to test it out. What if your midterm rental does well and then you start to realize like, hey, now we have a backlog, insurance companies want to use it. We'll just swap that short-term for a midterm because you're just going to keep your occupancy high.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the amazing thing about real estate is there's so many ways to hedge your bet, right? Like you're talking about hedging your bet in accordance with like income and different asset classes within the building, right? You can also hedge your bet in regards to, different economical, different demographics in the economy, right? So you could have, one person being Section 8 or housing assistance, one person being blue collar, one person being white collar, right? And then at different cycles in the economy, each group is going to be affected differently, but that could hedge your bets to ensure that you always will at least have, in that particular case, 2 of the 3 units rented.
Yeah. What about a 3 or 4 family that has 8 garage spaces? We're in the Northeast, you see them, they're random. You're like, why the hell do they have some garage spaces? And the people are like, oh, I don't want that. I don't need to give 2 spaces. Hey, dum-dum, you can rent those out. Like you rent out the car spaces. If you're near a train and you can get car garage spaces, you can just rent those to contractors. You'll get at least $250 a month to like $500 a month for something that's just sitting there. So it's just like the way that you look is really the problem. And your traditional sites like Zillow and Redfin, they don't make it easy to search. That's why it's great for people like us who have licenses. I can look for all the weird shit online, and that's how you find deals. You're like, I wonder, that just looks weird. It looks kind of like a dump, but you have 6 garage spaces in the back, or you have, 12 parking spaces, rent them out. Oh, you have 2 sheds? Great. Go on neighbor.com and rent those out for storage for $90 a month. Like you just have to figure it out. And so I grew up again with my dad. We literally had an ADU at every property growing up. My house has an ADU now. My kids have both lived in it. My son lives there now. My daughter lived there for 2 years. I lived in ADUs growing up because we were loud and my dad didn't want us in the main house. But like we also had tenants all the time. We'd buy a house and then he'd build a smaller house down there. Very rarely probably did he permit because the lot was big enough. No one even knew. He just pop a tenant in there. I'm like, what are all these weird people doing around? He's like, that's a tenant. They pay me money. I'm like, that's pretty smart. And we had, I remember one shared a kitchen. Like there was a door to another unit, but the main kitchen was in the main house. And I was like, who the fuck who is that? And they're like, oh, that's our tenant. They live over there. And even as a kid, I was like, this is kind of genius. Like I like, my dad always talked about money. Like he taught me about stocks, everything. So I was always in this kind of mindset of like, that's just smart. And the funny thing that I know from my podcast, and I know from your trajectory, is all the people who are old school were all doing shit like house hacking, and all these things. They just had no terminology, but almost everybody that you talk to has done some type of house hack or short-term rental strategy well before it was internet times, because they just were smart about figuring out how to make money through their assets.
I totally agree. And Artem here's a perfect example of that. I believe he did 5 house hacks in 3 years and like achieve financial freedom. Like you got to commend the guy.
That's awesome.
Most of those are actually living flips too, because if I'm here, I may as well do some work or get some sweat equity in as well. But that's actually a really big theme on the Bigger Pockets episodes and channels as well, is what level of discomfort you're able to deal with. If you can handle a tenant in your space, or you don't mind sharing something and renting out part of your space, you just get the financial freedom that much faster.
Yeah, and I think, when you're looking after, you're looking for financial freedom, people are really chasing time freedom because the financial part is scalable depending on what you need for your life, where you live, and really what you want out of life. Some people just want to go and live in a van all year. Like, you don't need that much to get to financial freedom. But to your point, which is great, you do have to understand, like, what am I comfortable with? And I think you need to do that as a landlord too. Am I even going to like this? Or am I going to waste a bunch of money on property management when I'm not at scale? Like, there's a lot of ways to lose money that you shouldn't lose. Like people who getting into short-term rentals now, and they're like, oh, I'll just hire someone to manage it for 30%. Like, just take the money and piss it down the drain. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's so many systems that can help you. You still need to it's still a job. There's people out there who think short-term rentals and multifamily and house hacking is passive. And you're like, bro, that's not passive. Syndications are passive and triple net is passive. Nothing else is passive. And, those, if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss the signs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, people think of real estate as mailbox money, and to truly be successful in real estate, you have to think of it as a business, right? You have to think of it as a business. You're creating a company with values, with an org chart, with structure, with systems. If you don't think about it like that, real estate will eat you alive, and it will eat your returns alive as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it over and over, and I would say that each property to me is a new business. It's a new business that needs to have separate bank accounts, unless you're running like a flipping business, then you're going to run those all as part of the big business. But yeah, I mean, that's why there's become such a market for, real estate investor specific cost seg specialist accountants. Like, you really need those. If you're going to lose so much money on taxes if you just don't get the things organized. And I mean, I literally am the poster boy for screwing up on taxes my whole life. I'm still doing it somehow. I'm much better. But it's just because how it is. You get going, things are going hot. Like, you're on fire. Oh, yeah, I see you on social. You're like, oh, just got another 82 unit. I'm like, what the? Like, how are you doing? Like, you just are in go mode. But then you look at the end of the year and you're like, well, that's not. I thought I was making a lot more money. No, you're grossing a lot more money. Your net doesn't look good because you have too many things in the middle that aren't consolidated. And then as you get closer to scale, you figure out how to consolidate. But that comes with a whole nother set of problems.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, there are so many really cool ways to save money in taxes with real estate. And if you don't use them intentionally, you're literally pissing money down the drain, as you alluded to, right? Like, obviously everybody here should understand the real estate professional designation according to the tax code, real estate being your full-time position. Obviously, there's more to it, but it's a magical rule because it allows you to utilize depreciation to offset your active income. Anything you make actively, you can pay no taxes on it if you have depreciation to shelter it. 1031s, way to defer taxes. Cash out refis, all tax-free money. So yeah, I mean,
studies.
What was that?
Cost segregation studies.
Cost segregation studies, which allow you to accelerate 20 to 30% of the depreciation year one. Yeah, so I mean, you have, to your point though, it's like these strategies are great, but if you don't proactively plan these strategies, Uncle Sam could be knocking on your door with a couple $100,000 tax bill.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've all been there. I mean, taxes are just annoying, and you wait too long to get it done. So until you employ someone to be on it all the time, you're just going to keep losing money. I mean, I've just learned the lesson too many times from just being like, oh, it's just it's uncomfortable. Like, I'm messy. I don't really want 14 different accounts. Like, let's just commingle the shit and put it together. But it doesn't serve you well in the end. And the bigger you get, the more you see it, and the more organized you have to be to keep it running like a business.
And to your point, you need everything segmented. You need up-to-date profit and loss statements, up-to-date balance sheets. Like, how are you going to manage each of these individual businesses if you don't have up-to-date financials to see if there's any discrepancies that you need to fix? Right.
Yeah, that's tax planning, because you still need to know what you're going to owe. Because I mean, how many people listening get to the end of the year and they're not, traditional W-2 employees, and they're like, I owe what? Yeah, you owe $70,000. Well, I don't have $70,000. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The IRS doesn't care. So you need to figure it out. Because you're just not tracking stuff on the way, or not paying your quarterlies, or not accounting for things that you didn't realize were going to be taxable income.
Yeah, I think it's super important to think of real estate as a business, not only to save you money, but also to make you money. Because you and I both know commercial property, 5+ unit multifamily, property with a commercial tenants, its value is based on how much income it spits out, right? It's
Yeah.
based off the NOI versus the cap rate, right? So if you understand that dynamic and you understand that, this is essentially a business. It's essentially, you know how you buy a business based off EBITDA and
Yeah.
it's the multiples, the same with the real estate, right? And if you
Yep.
use that same methodology, you can literally create hundreds of thousands of dollars out of thin air.
Well, I mean, you're a great example of doing this. I mean, if you're good at value add multifamily, even you can be good at operational value add and crush it, because all you have to do is go into a mismanaged 70 unit that doesn't have any structural issues, adjust everything, create a better, workflow for tenancies. Maybe you adjust like some water flow that saves a bunch of money. If you save or add on $25 in rent over 200 units, your valuation goes up like way more than you think. So, and then boom, then you can do cash out refi, do whatever you want. It's just that you have to be able to get in those rooms. And obviously you need to build up to it. You did, because I remember how you started. And I remember when I started to see the numbers scale, and I'm like, okay, like this is getting interesting. Like this, and it's not easy though. You bring in partners, you figure out, what things work. But that's real estate. Real estate to me is always a snowball business. Everybody talks about it. If you want to flip, you should be flipping a snowball for 1031 purposes. If you want a multifamily, you're going to multifamily snowball. For people who don't know, it's just rolling the snowball until it gets big enough. You just roll it into something else. You just keep doing it until, you can pass it on to your kids without any tax consequences.
Yeah. The velocity of capital at its finest.
Yeah, exactly. It's compound interest. But the coolest thing about real estate, we were talking before about you're running a business, on top of real estate. You also always own the real estate. So the way that I look at real estate as an asset hunter is the worst thing that can happen, like, okay, a fire happens, cool, I have insurance. I also own the land. I can build something cool. You own so many different things. If you own a commercial property, you own the land underneath it, you own the actual building and the building materials, and then you own the business that's inside of it. So technically, you really have 3 different types of assets sitting there, and you can take tax, like as we were saying, off of each of them. So I think if people think a little bit differently and don't just think of, hey, I want to get to scale, you have to build the foundation to get to scale. And I think, like I said, you're a good example of that. You start, you go from 3, you go to 4. Next thing you know, you're, a 14-plex presented itself. Get that. Once you do that, you can go to 30, 40 pretty quickly. And then the rest of the stuff doesn't look so bad. It's just a larger version of what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I just can think of the perfect example for this. I bought a 5 unit for $650, put $50K into it, refinanced it for $950, took a line of credit, bought a value add 9 unit with that $150. It was a gutted unit. We used hard money. We renovated that unit, and then we refied the 9 unit at 1.5, took all of our money out, then bought a 21 unit. So literally with all the same money, I got 35 units exactly through what you mentioned.
It's a snowball.
Forced appreciation combined with velocity to capital.
Yeah, and but like velocity of capital is a great word, but like what I've seen from what you do and what the best people do, it's also like the velocity of operations. Like you need to know what you're doing. If you're just putzing around, like, no, you're going to lose money. You have to go in with a plan, execute the plan, execute the refi, take the money, put it into another property. Like you can't just kind of mess around. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic got into real estate who had no business getting in real estate. They should have just put the money in index funds. They would be so rich right now. But instead they didn't. They're like, oh, I want to start an Airbnb empire. Wait, you have to manage those? Wait, tenants give a shit? Airbnb cares about my reviews? Oh, I didn't know I had to, give them a pot, things for the kitchen. You're like, well, like, what did you think they were going to do? You didn't have any spoons. It's so it looks flashy and it looks cool on TikTok, but it takes a lot of work, and I don't think that everyone's up for it.
No, I mean,
on top of that, the town will change the laws, and all of a sudden the Airbnb can't happen.
Right.
But the house doesn't pencil out and make profit unless it's an Airbnb, and then you're underwater.
Right. Wait, what's your backup plan? Every asset needs a backup plan that still pencils. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to know. I mean, look, your backup plan on anything is always long-term rent, even on a flip. What's my long-term rent going to be? Maybe I rent it for a couple of years, market turns around. You have to follow the market shifts, and now we're follow, rate shifts. But to me, I'm always focused on the asset. I don't have my head stuffed in the spreadsheet at all. Again, I have been at it for 50 years, so I can look at a property and I can just like, I want to get this. Like, I have the feel. The price doesn't really matter to me as much. I'm not like trying to scrape together a deal, but I only pay what I'm willing to pay. I have one price. I don't negotiate on anything that I do personally. Obviously, for clients as an agent, I'm always negotiating. But for me, I come in hot. This is my number. You don't want it, I'm gone. You'll never see me again. And when you come back, it's going to be 10,000 less or more. That's just the way I operate. I was a prosecutor for 8 years, criminal defense attorney. I'm used to hardcore negotiations. So for me, like, that's just the way I do business. I've never lost a property that I was like, oh man, that's the one that got away. I don't care. There's plenty of properties I wish I closed on or I wish I bought, but I'm not like crying, late at night because of one property. There's like 1 billion houses out there, 1 billion commercial properties. Like, I'm fine. You just have to keep going. Oh, great, I lost. Great, I'm just on to the next one. Then they call, they want the same deal. I don't want the same deal because I presented it to you and you said no. So now you're getting a penalty for that. If they don't like it, it's fine. Go find somebody else. I mean, not that new people should be like that, but again, I would aspire to be a little bit more hardcore once you have the experience to do it, because the biggest power you have in real estate is the ability to walk away. And those that get emotionally attached don't walk away, make terrible decisions. Oh, I have to have it. It's the best property I've ever seen. No, it's not. There's literally the whole block looks the same in a residential neighborhood. They all built at the same time. What do you think? You can just make the inside look like this. So, I mean, to me, like, when you walk away, they always come back. No, I mean, not always, but like a lot more than people think.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it is very important to know your numbers, but also stick to your numbers, right? I mean, ultimately, we're in this game for returns, right? Like, this is a numbers game for you and I, right? Like, trust me, I would love to own every single property out there, but not at a 4 cap rate.
Right. But look, so somebody was asking me about low balls before. I'm not a low ball offerer, but some people are priced high. So if you're priced high and it doesn't match, I'm not sending a low ball. You may think it's a low ball, but I'm going to explain why it's not a low ball. If you don't like it, again, see it in 3 months when it's still not sold. But then there are low balls, which I think is a waste of time. Like, if you're just, I remember people would come to me as an agent, and they'd say like, oh, I want to make, they're investor. I'm an investor. I want to make, 10 offers a week on every property, that fits this buy box. I'm like, how's that a good use of my time? All the agents are going to hate me and your offers all suck. Well, I'm just hoping someone accepts. I'm like, yeah, that's not really the way that I do business. I do business on properties I want to get, not just on all of them. So I think that people, maybe they took a course, maybe they watched another thing on YouTube that said, hey, buying 10 Section 8 rentals in Detroit is a good idea. It's not a good idea unless you're experienced. It's not a good idea to start flipping now unless you're experienced. It's just not. You can fight with me in the Bigger Pockets forums all you want. I'm never going to tell you it's a good time to be a first-time flipper, because you're going to lose money, or you're going to make a little money if you don't have help or a partner. But part of the problem now, especially because, obviously we met in the Bigger Pockets forums, it's like, people, they're just babies. They can't take no for an answer. They don't like anyone to tell them, hey, that's actually a really stupid idea. Look, what do I have to gain from that? If you're making a stupid idea and I tell you it's stupid, I don't have anything against you. I'm trying to help you. What do I care? I'm doing it for free and just going into a forum, and then, people are melting down because they're not getting what they want. They're used to this kind of participation trophy culture where it's like, well, whatever idea I have is going to be a great one. It's not. That's how you lose money in real estate, and then you don't hear from them again.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, real estate is not easy, and it's, it's all about, either, having the expertise or leveraging somebody with the expertise, right? So, kind of leading into that sort of questioning, if you could kind of go back to your 20-year-old self and give him 3 pieces of advice that you could not live without to be successful in this world, what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
1, listen to everything your dad told you. That, for me personally, I wouldn't say everybody should listen to their dad. My dad was never wrong about anything. He did a lot of deals that weren't great, but he always led with his heart. And he was right about everything in my personal life and my business life. Guy just knew, and I think, again, my kids are, about to be 24 and 22. They're starting to see it too. Like, this guy, he's kind of smart. I'm like, oh, thanks. So that's what I earned. Number two, I would say, take care of my own mental health first, and not like mental health, like I'm in distress, but like your own kind of just security around yourself. Because if you're not okay, if you're struggling, or if you just don't feel good about yourself, you're going to be the worst business person ever. When you're stressed out because you've got family problems, that's not time to buy a property. You're going to make a stupid deal, and then you're going to not do upkeep on the property. So taking care of yourself was a big mindset shift for me about 10 years ago that helped me reframe my life and focus on the things that matter and get rid of the things that don't. And then three is probably one that everybody's heard. It's that, surround yourself with the 5 people that you want to be like. But I kind of think of it more of that Napoleon Hill like mastermind. If you imagine the 5 people that you want to talk to the most, like think of creating tables like that. Be the smallest person in the room for a change. What do you have to be the big guy all the time? It's good to be a big guy too, because then you can help other people, but you're not going to learn everything if you just surround yourself with people who aren't doing what you're doing and don't have the dreams and goals that you do. I'm sure you learned this from GoBundance, Andrew, but like when you go into a group and you're like, Jesus, like these people are all just demolishing it, you get pumped up. And then you grab great partners and great real advice. Like, do you want to take advice from Bobby on TikTok, who does 30-second shorts and, drives around in a Lamborghini that's leased? Or you want to take it, from Robert, who wears, Crocs and shorts and a ripped shirt all the time, but owns 1,000 units all on his own? I'm going with Robert.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. You really have to be the smallest fish in the room. Like, for example, like, here in my market, I'm probably one of the big fish, right? Like if I didn't surround myself around rooms like GoBundance or other masterminds, I would think I knew it all, right? And that would lead to large ego and me making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think it's prudent to surround yourself around people doing bigger things, because ultimately all of us need to be humbled. Right?
Oh, so much. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you talked about ego, because I made bad deals in my life because of ego. And when I took that kind of mindset shift and checked out for a year, it really reframed my ego. And it was weird because my dad didn't have a big ego. He was confident. I was always confident. So a lot of people thought I had a big ego when I didn't. I just know what I'm talking about. But there were deals where I was acting on ego, and I've completely eliminated that. And that comes from walking away. Like, once you walk away a couple of times, you're like, ooh, it's pretty cool to tell people no. And then I applied it to my personal life because I don't really like to do stuff. So people are like, you want to go to a party? No, I don't like parties. They suck. Like, it's not for me. And that helped kind of me take care of my own personal life, which then, of course, made me much, much better in business because I was streamlined, well slept. I was only doing the things that I want. I had time to exercise. I had time to practice all of my wellness principles. That just makes me better at business and more focused on the things that I'm excited about.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that brings us full circle in the fact that there's a reason why the name of your podcast is Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. It's right because you think of real estate investing not just about making money, but also about mindset and cultivating a abundant sort of mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one, I when I took that reset about 10 years ago, it was really like, how do I get into myself? And all I did for a year was just work on myself, read 100 books, started my first couple of podcasts to get a taste for what that was like, wrote a ton. And then when I came back to real estate, I was like, I'm not looking at this the same. I had good boundaries around when people could call me. Everybody knows, if your listeners, that like, I don't answer the phone. No one can get me on the phone. I only text. I only do set Zooms or set phone calls. Like, my message says, don't even try to call me. Don't leave a message, just text me. Because that's my boundary. And I'm better at that because I can just put my phone on do not disturb when I'm not there. But like, for someone to think that I'm just available for a call when they want is just silly. My schedule is morning to night, whether that means meditations on there, like, my blocks are in there, and I'm not, catering to other people's schedule. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just when you look at why I started the podcast and then what I've learned from it, a lot of it around the most successful people in real estate have really good mindset. You know, and they developed it over time. It's not like they were born, came up and as a 6-year-old, they're like, meditating and doing so well. And, no, it doesn't work like that. But the more reps that you get in business and the more mistakes you make, the more that you can look at it without ego and then say, oh, I think there's a better way to do this. You said it before, like everything to me should be a win-win. If you're not in search of a win-win, that means somebody's going to lose, and that throws off the balance of the karma in the transaction. I want everyone to walk away happy, and it's very aggravating when they don't. And I used to be the one who would be pressing the buttons because of my attorney background, like when I would just keep going. And now I'm the opposite. Like when someone's going haywire, my first question always, even if it's off market, when you're doing off market, this is a good example. When you're doing off market marketing, direct mail, whatever, you get a lot of FU calls back. And my first question when I started to learn this was, hey, is everything okay? Are you all right? Because I know it can't be me. I'm just calling off of a list. Once you get that, boom, you're building a relationship. Everything changes. And that's why I was so good. I'm so good person to person, even though I'm a complete introvert and would prefer to just like kind of hang out by myself or with my kids.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's a reason why my title, my company is called Chief Collaborative Officer, because ultimately, real estate's a team sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And, you want everybody leaving the situation feeling good and feeling like they won it, right? Like, I'll just give you a quick example. Like I ended up closing on this 12-unit property. We submitted an offer through an agent. They denied our offer. They took an offer from somebody else. I happen to know that other person. They ended up bringing the deal to me. We closed.
Yeah.
But that original agent was pissed. He got cut out of the deal. Right. And I get it, right?
Yeah.
So what did I do? I ended up calling him. We ended up paying the guy an $8,000 commission outside the transaction because ultimately I want everybody feeling good at the end of the day. And that guy brought me a ton of deals. I guarantee because he feels good now, I'm going to get way more deal flow in the future.
Yep. I've done the same thing. I remember this off-market property in Belleville, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I'm in New Jersey. A lot of wholesalers were bidding at the time, and they were all bidding under 200. I mean, they have to be complete idiots because I found out what their upset value was and they owed 201. So like, you're not going to close the deal. Like they're in foreclosure. You have to pay 201 or more. So I said, well, I'll give you the 201 plus 5,000 to move. They're like, done. Literally brought back the contract later that day. They had 7, 8 offers of all people doing the same because they were running the numbers and they weren't focused on the person. What's the $6,000 off of for me? It's a great deal. And P.S. they came back to the open house. I mean, the husband was a little psycho, but like they came back to the open house after we flipped it. A little bit upset because that always happens. I always invite people back. It's a little bit like, oh, we could have done this. No, you couldn't. But okay, but that's just part of it. I'm welcome to opening them back. It doesn't always work out well, but that's part of the win-win process. And like you said, abundance is, look, you couldn't flip it. I'm here to help you out if you can. And, the way that I phrase a lot of my off market is, I want to take over as the caretaker, especially for older people. It's like, yeah, you've built something great. I don't want to ruin your house, but I'm going to fix it. I don't lie. I'm not going to live in here with your mauve carpets. I'm going to fix it up and sell it. That's what I do. I'm an investor, but I'm going to do it with care because I like that you've stayed here 50 years. I hope the person I sell it to stays 50 years also. Just going to get rid of your carpets.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I want to give Andrew a nod about searching for win-wins. It's a big lesson I learned from him early on. And it comes through everything. Like even dealing with contractors, Andrew says, oh, if the contractor overcharges you a little bit, most people get fired up. But he says, no, let it go. This guy gives you so much work, or he's done so much for you already, and he's going to continue work for you. Overlook the little things in order to save that relationship. And I really like that. You're the master at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love it. I think, one thing I had to learn that's very similar to that is I needed a buffer in a lot of situations. When I flipped, I needed a project manager because everything, I'm ready to fire everyone. One thing goes wrong, like I'm ready to fire them. And so then I would do it. I fire the contractor on the second day. And then guess what? I'm getting the same crappy, not the same contractor, but the contractor's the same. They're doing the same bullshit right away. So like, I'm not helping myself. So I learned where I needed to take myself out of the business. And when my sister and I were managing properties together, I realized like, I'm not the tenant person there. I learned that from my dad, but those times were over. I was busy, you know, I was working 100 hours a week. So she would do that. And when we needed to do legal action, you know, I would do that, or if we needed a letter. So we figured out how to partner between ourselves. And I found that buffers and all my businesses really saved me from the stuff that used to annoy me.
That's a great point. So, you know, John, I just really want to thank you for taking the time to really show us, you know, your ethical and mindful approach to real estate and conservative approach, because most people sell real estate as this easy thing that, you know, that you can achieve with zero work. Right. And I like the fact that you put a realistic lens on real estate for our audience. So I just want to thank you for that. So before we end the podcast, can you just tell our audience where can they learn more about you and where can they listen to your amazing podcast, which I'm a fan of, by the way?
And you've been on the show as well. So it's Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. That's the website, zenandtheartofrealestateinvesting.com. My hub site, which has kind of everything, all the podcasts like this recording will go up on my hub site. In the speakers section, there's probably 70, 80 guest spots that I've done. That's trustgreen with an E at the end.com. And then my brokerage, I just opened a brokerage in New Jersey, data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage in Madison, New Jersey. That's called Streamline, and the website is streamlined.properties.
Great.
And I'm easy to find on social, very, very easy. I'm old, but I'm good on social, so I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, so if you want endless real estate knowledge, go check out his amazing podcast, Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. If you're looking for any really good properties, I believe in the New Jersey market, definitely find John. He is a wealth of knowledge. And you know, it's the easiest way to get a mentor in real estate is to hire somebody as your agent. So little tip right there, right?
Yeah.
I just want to thank John for being on the podcast and just thank our audience for listening. And I'll see you next time on the Freedom Real Estate Podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.